Well, I've been talking about to you and to myself about this painting called, for now it's called Painting from a Photograph. This is on the central coast of California. This vista is right between Cambria on the central coast on the ocean and Paso Robles, which is 28 miles inland from there. This is kind of halfway in between. A ranch and hillside, and anyway, I've been looking at it. I've been looking at it ever since I thought I was finished with it, and I do feel that the sky, the blues, and the blues in the sky, and the palette knife highlights on the hills is so overpowering that it really kills the rest of the painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring that back, gray it out, don't have so much interest in the background because your eye goes from the central part of the painting, which is the middle foreground and middle ground with the oaks and the little sycamores. Some of them are still in the bud stage where they're kind of on the lavender side. And some of them have bloomed out completely. I also thought that the highlight, the grass where the sun is showing in the background was just too punchy in relationship to everything else. So I'm going to bring that down. But the hillside really was the worst. And I think looking at the painting, and I'm looking at it all the time, I've really reduced the number of highlights and crevasses of old paint that came from my palette every night and that I put on to onto this old canvas. And then this one I ground down forever and ever and ever. And then I even put gesso on top of it to kind of smooth it out. It was still, I shouldn't have painted on it. I would have been much happier painting on a canvas that didn't have that much paint on it and that many lumps and bumps. But since I paint on old paintings all the time, and I scrape them and I use orbital grinders on them to get the surface relatively smooth, this one was just overdone. Really overdone, and I think that's what's really bothering me about it. And then in trying to rescue and make me feel better, I ended up putting on that bright cerulean blue sky, and then I ended up putting those highlights on the hillside, which ended up competing with everything in the foreground. And so it was just an emotional outburst on my part to try to make this thing work. And I think working on it some more and kind of the lumps and bumps that cast shadow, so the ones that ended up where the light hit it just right, you could see a line running through something, those things have been pretty well eliminated. I mean, of course, I'm not going to end up using a high gloss varnish when I'm done with this to re-emphasize it. It's going to be left matte to kind of de-emphasize all the lumps and bumps. But basically, I think I may be happier with it than I was when I saw you last. This is going to be working just from a photograph. I don't have a sketch, and I'm putting this on a board that I used to just put my scrapings on, and I've tried to grind it down, but it got so hard that I've got lots of lumps on it, but that's okay. Let's see what happens. Working from a photograph, when you make your print, here's a lighter print, here's a lighter print, a much lighter print with a background, and the sky almost disappears. But some of the detail is here that you're going to have a hard time seeing in a print that is not overexposed, but kind of maybe even a little bit underexposed to give you detail at areas that were too light. So I always make more than one print, and that lets me kind of pick and choose. You see that the sunlight is really hitting back here, maybe here, but otherwise very little. So this is going to be it's a 16 by 20 working from a photograph. Any beginning of any painting, it always, I just kind of design it. I take, the masses and shapes that are given to me or that are in front of me, whether they're on the photograph or they're out on plein air. I just kind of decide this line coming here. I will just decide which these masses I want. Looks to me like this right here is one of the largest masses that goes here, comes forward, and then goes up the hill here, and continues here. And then we have the light yellow sycamores growing down here. And so basically designing the masses is really what comes first. Then there's another hill back here. Then we end up having, and it's got vegetation, trees and things on it. Comes down here. Then we're in the center part right here. You can follow along. This is that mass of trees right here in the center. And of course, one of the things that really helps. Now I've put this right in the center. I probably shouldn't do that, but let's leave it there for now. We'll move it if it really becomes objectionable. It's a mass that's kind of lends weight to the painting, and if I'm adding more things to the one side or another, maybe the weight ends up shifting a little bit more to the right. So now, then we end up having in the foreground here, large oak. These are all oaks right here. So now let me take a bigger brush. It'll go faster. No need to spend a lot of time on this. I just want to see, is this going to work? And the only way you know that is by putting down the masses that you think are here. These are the dark oaks right there. Of course, they're not going to be square. They're going to have a shape to them. Here. And then we end up having trees that are part of this hillside right here. And we end up having the hillside. And kind of a distant hill behind here. Again, I've got this almost in the center. And I don't think I want to put two things in the center. It'll end up making it difficult in distributing the weights that are here. So let me, let's see here. So let me put it further to the right. Yeah. All right. So this is hillside back here. Then in front of that, in this area right here, is where that light green grass, the sun is really hitting right here. It kind of continues back here. Then we end up having where the sycamores are growing right here. That's where the sycamores are going to be. And these are kind of in transition. They're not blooming yet, but down here, these are right here. And I'll put some colors in it in a minute, and then it'll be even easier to understand. Here is another grouping that starts kind of from here and then gets larger and larger. Oops, lots of strange colors here, but that's all right. I'm thin, so it really makes very little difference. Here, there. This is that oak in the foreground. This comes a little bit more forward here. And the reason it comes more forward, it's not because I'm following exactly what it says here. I want it to come more forward. In other words, if I left, let me outline it for you so you know what I'm talking about. If I left this kind of right here, it opens this up, and I really want to kind of close it off. And the photograph ends up having it there, but if it wasn't there, I would want it closed off, closer. I don't want to have this a big Broadway area. I wanted to kind of close it off, so it kind of comes down here, there, here. Okay, so I've got the major masses. This is going to be a little trail. Another reason I didn't want that trail just kind of get lost right here. So the trail goes here, goes up the hill, and somehow it must get through this ditch that's right there, and then continues over there on the other side. All right, that's kind of a basic layout. And with the hill that I've moved over to the right-hand side here, this actually no longer bothers me and being in the center. But let me throw some color in there so we get an idea of what's going to be what. The background is going to be a light yellow-green. There. This is where the sun is shining. It's even more yellow. But for now, just putting in a little bit of information so I have an idea, and it continues behind this large tree. Then I'm going to block that in. They're pines or something, so they're going to have some orange in it. It's awfully dark, Carl. So back makes me something a little bit less punchy. Now here. All right, yeah, that's better. Still dark. Okay, so warm it up even more. It's hard for you to see. Okay, and then we end up having these oaks down here, and I'm just adding a kind of a green, basic oak green here. I mean, like if you've been watching some of the other videos, you know that the intent of mine is to get something on the canvas that tells me, yeah, this is definitely going to work, or boy, no, I'm not sure if it is. What else do I have to do? What else do I have to change or modify to make it work? So that's my thinking as I'm doing this. Just blocking in the various masses, and then again we end up having a much, much darker green here. Of course, woohoo! All that will change. I'm adding some more orange to it. There. And it ends right here, and there's more stuff going on there. I'll go back to that in a minute. This side should be much lighter because the sun really is coming from the right, and it is shining on this, but it should be a lighter green. Almost as light as the stuff back here, almost. All right. Now, this row actually continues, and I do want to continue it a little bit here. Certain here. There's no visible farmhouse, but there is a farmhouse here somewhere. It is a ranch somewhere on the central coast of California. Here. There will be a ranch here. These are the trees that kind of move my masses over. And this mass of oaks kind of gives me a nice slant to it. It's kind of heading in that direction. All right, more dark green over here. Stay thin so that it quickly gets done. All right. Boy, I don't think I've ever painted on the canvas that has had so many lumps and bumps on it, but that's what I'm doing. So here, the path is going to go there. All right. There's going to be a little bit of grass right here. And you know, when I when I decide to take a photograph, of course I'm looking for a composition so I don't have to do as much work. Sometimes it works, and sometimes you do have to make a major changes. There is this hillside over here. The sun is actually shining on that, and so I'm going to warm that up a little bit here. Comes down there. There. All right. In the center here, those are sycamores that haven't started their spring coat, which is usually a nice warm reddish coat. That's not reddish enough for me. Again, just blocking the major masses in, and yeah, no, it's got to be even lighter here, and it's more on it's a little there. Yep. There. It continues here. You pop up between those oaks. It goes here. And down in the foreground here. And then here it's going to be a sycamore that has already started to show us some nice spring green leaves that are coming out. So, all right, well, we know basically the road is going to go right through the middle here. It goes here, up, and then continues on the other side. It'll be a brown path. Then, let's see, the sky is so light that not even on the darkest version of my print there's anything to be seen. So it's going to be a relatively light, but we can change that if we want. So I'm just going to put in a value. It's got a little blue in it here. almost. Now the hill, even though there's all that green grass in the foreground, it didn't have a lot. It didn't have a lot of grasses. It was basically a hillside that has already either gone brown or has not turned green yet. I don't know how that's going to work. Keeping some of the brown, California brown hillside colors back here. Well, maybe. And that's kind of where we left off. All I'm doing really now is making sure I like the masses that I've got. And so I'm going back to every mass that I've got here to make sure. And I'm putting in some nice darks so I know where the darks are in this oak tree and in this group of trees here, here. Making those lighter back here because they're farther away. Here. There. This whole business back here is farther away, so the masses are there, but they're going to be lighter. They're not going to be as dark. And I don't like that field running off the board, off the canvas. Here. And there's a little hillside here because I think I'm going to put some trees there, but that's just a thought. Anyway, we're working from a photograph, and I mentioned in the first one that when you do make a print or have a print made, that you do a couple of different exposures, because here you can see the hills. In this one, they're almost gone, but I end up getting much more detail on what's here. And here the grass is a lot more yellow. It's punchy as back here because the sun is shining on it, but I think I'm going to make it more yellow in the foreground too. More yellow. Yeah. Okay. We end up breaking it up, but still need to, I'd like to have that a little punchier. Here. There is a creek that is fed here, so there'll be some water somewhere along the line here. There will be water, like here, maybe down here. And it continues right along the side of the middle. But anyway, that's information that, yeah, it's just more information. Because of this green, and this oak is green, I'm going to make this oak a lot more orange to kind of set it off. More orange. Yep, it'll be a green, but it'll be like so. So it sets off. I could make it much darker, but I don't know if I want to. For now, here's that oak. It ends up having a nice trunk in here, but for now, there's this oak. Now, I want to put some shadows into that hillside in the background, which it has. Can't see it on this one. But you can see the shadows in the photographs here. So I'm randomly going to include some. The sunlight's coming from here, so the shadows would be behind this rise. This line here was just simply identifying the shape of the hill. Yeah. So let's put a little bit more here. Too dark. Some more brown into the hill. I've only been using this very broad brush and kind of a pointed one to kind of outline things to begin with, but basically I've used this one brush because, well, I think that's all I need. Here. Again, this thing is a little, so maybe I'll go that way. So that's what I'm thinking, make it go a little bit further that way. So we go here, there. Let's fill that in. Orange. And then bring that yellow down. The yellow grass is in the background. Not as dead center as it was. And I'll probably will like it better. But these lumps in this board is just so crazy. But it makes it interesting. I mean, it makes it a different kind of painting. It's got, even applying the paint through all these lumps, it's really not easy. But I'm enjoying it and just kind of playing with it. And so I'll continue. Oh, and I haven't explained why all the lumps are on this canvas. And the reason is that at the end of the day, when I'm done and I'm scraping my palette, I don't save it because it'll be dry in the morning. I end up putting it on a board. I put it on a board, and I put it on this board, and it got thicker and thicker and thicker, and that was really hard to grind off. I took an orbital grinder and tried to get it off, but boy, it was almost impossible. So a lot of the lumps stayed, and I said, well, I'll paint on it, and it'll be interesting. And then, as it turned out, it is. It is interesting. I think there is a creek here. It'll continue, but I don't know. I've got to be careful. Here's a little path, and it continues on the other side. All I really have to do is just scrape it, because there's that nice orange ground. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll paint over it and probably cover those scratch marks. Anyway, I've got to put a bottom on these trees, so there's something here. Yeah, we can have a little light coming through saying, these trees are kind of farther apart so we can see the stuff behind it. This line is so perfectly straight. I don't like that. It just doesn't look good. Just having straight lines. is not a good idea. So here, there, that there is going to be the darkest part here is where those trees are running down into the ground or into the creek that's there. I'm sure there's a creek here. Yeah. Here, defining the masses is what I'm doing. And I'm going to continue to do that until, and once I've defined them, and then I decide, this is the color I want in there. I think this can go more purpley. Yeah, it's got a little purple tint to it. Okay. Yeah. Controlling the paint with all this stuff on here is much more difficult than if it were just a regular prime canvas, but I chose to do this, and so it's okay. Yeah. The farmhouse that this is Highway 46 from Cambria to Paso Robles is right here on the right-hand side, and I just got out of the car and took a picture. That's what this is right here. Yeah. And let's put a little red on there. Anyway, there's a little farm back here. The road to Highway 46. It's right there. Right. And also, I think this guy can use a little bit more help. There. Yeah, just a little more contrast. And whenever I'm doing something like this quickly, I always have to go back and reestablish the mass. And the mass is, what I'm talking about is this hillside. Or this group of trees back here. Or these oaks along the side. Or the sycamore. And that sycamore, just to show you what has a beautiful light trunk. Yeah, here. And even the ones back here do. Yeah. You can tell I'm not being real careful. I'm just kind of trying things, and if it works, I'm happy. If it doesn't, I'll paint over it. Yes, I said this was going to be the foreground oak tree. Want to be nice and dark. Get some nice greens, some Payne's gray, a little bit of orange, and then here, maybe a little darker. The light's coming from here, and so I'm making this side. I don't like this line here, and so I'm going to go in with it with a green on the next to it and kind of paint into it here. So that's the grass. This is the oak. Yeah, keep re-identifying the masses. That's this large oak. I like the crown on it. And got a lot of reddish brown in it, just to make it separate from all the greens in the background. Here. they do have a bottom, and it's usually foliage, I mean leaves from these oaks has fallen down, and it ends up kind of having a very nice reddish brown bottom here. Again, it has a gray trunk. There's some full shade. So it'll be here. And a little bit of here. Yeah. Now, all right, let's see. I'm going to give a nice crown to these here too. It still has the darks in there, and it separates from the background. When I can do that, then if it gets too much the same value, there's no separation between things that are in shadow. They go back in here. Yeah, like that. So again, I want to make that darker. It's the place where there's no light shining in there, and so I've got to have it darker. Yeah, I'd like more of that light. There. Okay. I feel like that's okay. All right. Yeah, it's got a light trunk, but that's a little too light. But I'll be doing this more than once, and I'll do it repeatedly until I'm finally happy. So, if you're following along, here, there is a road that goes all the way up to Highway 46. So there's a road that goes from the ranch somewhere, which is really hidden from my photograph, but it's there. I've left a note in their mailbox saying, "Can I come on your property and paint?" I never heard back from them, so I just kind of took a photograph and decided to do it on my own. Now, there are some light trunks in that. Let's see if I don't make them too light. That doesn't look good. So then you put some little darks between those trunks, like here. There's like no shadows between those trunks, so I've got to do that. And with the light coming from here, I'd say it would be darkest on this side and lightest on that side. I'm going to put some more orange in it. On the exposure, that's the lightest exposure. It certainly shows the orange. Yes, it does. Yeah, I'm going to make that lighter. And then when I get values like this here in the tree, and they're so close that I can't see a separation, I've got to go back in and identify it. So I got to go like so. Otherwise, I just don't know. I hate to have masses run into each other without there being separation. I really do. Okay. I said I was going to have some trees in the foreground, but I think I'm going to wait until it dries just a little bit, maybe tomorrow. Okay. And then when I get a sausage like this, even if in reality it's, oh, there's also another tree right there. Oh, I like that. See that right there? And it's going to be one of these, one of those eucalyptus. No, sycamore, sorry. It's going to be a sycamore. And it's going to be right about here. Yeah, oh, I like that. Yeah. Again, these are kind of bordered by other masses that makes them kind of separate, but here, this one doesn't. And so I go make a mass out of it that I like here. And of course, later on, they'll get some nice trunks here too. All right, no, I like what that is. I said I was going to put some trunks in, but I'll try that tomorrow. Well, it's the same basic painting. I've increased the contrast just a little bit. Made this road a little brighter. It could be even brighter yet. And so that's what I do at this stage. I try to improve on what I've got. Sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. One of the things I do want to change some more, I've reduced the hillside, the hill touching the top of the painting. I don't want to have that continue. I need these darks are kind of the basic darks here. There's a few here, a spot here, but I want to put another dark here. And I think that the crown for this oak is a little too light. I need to darken it a little bit. So there's a few things to do, but not very much. I mean, not very much. I've added a bunch of paint, and in places where there are ribs like this, ribs of paint, I've decided to accentuate it, to make it part of the tree. And that's what I meant by saying I'd like to add a bunch of paint to it to kind of mitigate all of the lumps and the bumps that are here. Also, this transition right here is not to my liking. There's a hillside on the other side of Highway 46, and so it ends up casting a shadow that's here, and I want to make it more gray instead of what I had, or maybe have the yellow run into it. I think that's what I'm going to do. Take my yellow, there, have it run in right like so. So it's not just, here's that. All right. The other thing I was going to do is I was going to change, make that a little darker, and I'm taking my brilliant green, some orange, to make it darker. Not too dark, but darker, and keeping it on the warm side. Boy, I tell you, keeping things on the warm side is really, really, really essential. And the reason is, with all the greens, I do want to kind of balance, give harmony to the painting. If I don't do that, it really will be out of balance. So it's a little darker. Is it too dark? Maybe I'll put some highlights in it that warm it up. Also, because it's so close in value to the things behind it, I oftentimes will accentuate some of the lines, like here. It'll separate it from the background. There's a darkness down here because the sun's coming from here. And so this is a darker area because the shadow from the tree is falling over here. All right. I think I'm going to need a dark here. My only darks are here. Yeah, I've got some darks here, but I'm not real happy with this. Let's make it darker on this this side a little bit. There. Here. Yeah. Okay. And I said I was going to make it a little darker right here. A lot of paint, old paint right here that I'm going to try to use as a vehicle. Yeah. Yeah. There. Yeah. Again, I'm going to try to separate it. So it separates from the surroundings. Let's see. This sycamore is basically, it continues up the hill here, so I can make these dark lines to kind of separate it. All right. There. Here. Yeah, just by adding the dark on that side, it was just too much of the same. Also, I think the this is almost like I've shaved it right there. Kind of having it not that perfect line, but kind of coming up will help here. Okay. Also, I don't like the transition here. I'm going to add a little bit more paint in this area. Here. Again, lots and lots of paint. Yeah, that's okay. I like that. At least I like the transition better. Okay. Some of the paint I'm adding is adding its own shadow because I'm adding lots and lots of paint, but I think it's heading in the right direction. And I wanted to, and I did already, but I think I want to do a little bit more, adding a little bit of a green tint in areas here, as if part of this hillside has got a continuation of the grass. It may not have appeared like that in the photograph I showed you, but I want to do a little bit of that to make it feel like some of that green is actually heading up the hill here. Yeah. Here. Okay. Also, one of the things that's not in the photograph, but I've got this line right here, and this line continuing on that side, and somehow I've got to break up that line, and so I'm saying that along the line where the hillside and the grass meet, I've got to put something here, something that kind of brings forward the masses that I've got here. All right, it's another sycamore or something back here. Yeah, a little green on it, like so. Yeah, something that'll just kind of drive the eye into the painting. Yeah, a little more orangey, and that will be it. So there. Anyway, It still has a lot of lumps and bumps in it, but to me it was a interesting use of a canvas that I thought I was going to toss, but here it is. I also think this is probably not going to go to the gallery. I'll probably make it a gift to someone, a client, or people that have done something good in life. So, yeah, here, of course, as you already know, I'll probably be working on this to see if I can improve on it. That's kind of my mission in life. There. Okay. Hope it was an experience that was worthwhile your time. For now, there was a big heavy line right over here. There's still a lot of stuff going on here. This I've done with a brush, but it can just as easily be done with the palette knife. Just going over it. So a palette knife can be a way to save things that the brush doesn't seem to be able to do. The same with some of the browns that are on here. I can have some of the highlights. Here. And like I said, the green in the meadow here in this grassy knoll was very much affected. And even if the color is a little different, that's fine. But I do want to repeat that color down here. It's a little snappier. This is close. This yellow is almost like this yellow. I've added a lot more green to it, which is the Utrecht Brilliant Green. And I do like it. So, okay. All right. I like that brilliant green enough to stick it to the other side here. There, oh, I like that. Then down here, it's kind of mushy. Down here, I've got, I've got some of the original canvas still underneath there, but I think I'm going to put some a green. I need some more of the darker green that I had here. Just mixing it up as I need it. Yeah. Yeah, I like that nice punchy green. Don't need it everywhere, that's for sure. Some more over here. Yeah. All right, the other thing was, oh, the sky. Yes, the sky that I need, it's got really lots of lumps in here, so I'm gonna it covers so nicely that the effect of all those lumps and bumps, even when they're highlighted now, some of the lumps, some of the holes, some of the depressions in here, well, that's what palette knives do anyway. So when people see it and they see that you work with a palette knife, that is something that is going to be expected by people who are looking at this painting. Okay. And if you wanted to close some of these depressions that are showing blue through it, well, you can just pop in more paint onto your palette knife and it'll be gone. Okay, let's see, was there something else that I wanted to do? Oh, yeah, I did want to punch up the tracks here. And I wanted to it's the hillside. Yeah. Well, it's a painting that has a lot of paint on it. Some of the depressions and highlights on the canvas have been alleviated by me putting lots of paint on it. But basically, design of it was the same as any other painting. Whether it's plein air or in the studio, I really don't change anything except for the size. I don't paint large on location for a number of reasons. Anyway, there's more highlight on the right-hand side here. That's okay. Again, and here it's starting to accentuate the irregularities. And in that case, I want to put more paint on there. Okay. Okay, like any time I'm working on something, once I start playing with color, I end up overdoing it. But I think from a conclusion standpoint is that disregarding the canvas with all of the paint on it, and it's still a decent design, and I think it was a lesson in learning how to paint with from a photograph. And even though we weren't outside and we weren't doing it on plein air, the results of following what you see in front of you and rearranging things. Remember the hillside, the top of the hill was over here. I thought it was too close to the large tree in the center over here, which we've moved to the left somewhat. We moved that to the right. Otherwise, we would have had a high hump here and this, and then very little over here. So I thought we'd move that here. Also, I think that fanning some of the branches, leaves, and ready to blossom sycamores in this creek helped as well to bring it out. This was too light before. I darkened it. I think it works. So this is kind of a review of where I think we've been and where we've finally ended up. And I think it's a decent painting. And let's try something new and different.